Hello and welcome to Fit With Us episode 60. We've now reached a number that neither of us think that we would have managed to reach, but here we are. Gary, how are we today?
Unbelievable, mate. I'm doing very well today, so how are you?
Yes, mate, no complaints. The weather, I know it's a fucking grim thing starting a podcast with a weather update, but the weather here has been miserable, mate. It's apparently we haven't seen sunlight in 10 days. What's it like over there?
It's actually pretty mild just now. We had like a snow warning the other day, but fuck all, snow came. We had a wee tiny bit, but I wouldn't even say it was snowing. But yeah, it seems it's pretty nice today. There is a wee bit of sunlight creeping through the clouds. Not as grey and as dreary as Dundalk, that's for sure.
I was going to say, keep your happiness to yourself. I regret asking, mate.
Mate, I'll tell you something, right? If you're watching the podcast, you can probably see that I'm looking fucking fresh at the barbers, right? This podcast almost didn't happen, or didn't get recorded for another hour. I know you don't know when we're fucking recording it, whatever, but um, I've got like a skin fade, and he used an open razor to tidy it up. Mate, the back of my head is nipping, man. Oh, it is so stingy.
Was it one of the Turkish barbers that done it?
No, it wasn't. No, he's very much white.
Ah, fair enough. I was going to say I don't have the head shape for Turkish barbers, mate. It makes me look very polygon, like mate. I'm like a PS1 character. It's not great. Like,
No, it's a barber that I got up to up in Springburn when I lived up in the kind of the north side of the city, and I've just kind of stuck with him. But yeah, just fucking, it's so stinging. I think because the weather's like it's got a wee nip to the air, the wind.
yeah,
And it's just burning right now. But yeah, as you can see, it's looking mighty fresh. However, I've said this to you before the episode started. Like, hopefully, he doesn't listen to this, but I fucking hate when barbers put like wax and stuff in your hair because it just never sits the way you want it to sit, the way you can picture it in your own head. So I'm having to roll with it just now because I just got home and straight on this podcast.
mate. It's a very risky thing to do, slagging your barber on the internet. Next time
I
you
didn't
go,
slag him. I didn't slag him.
it's not what I heard. You ever been to the barbers just whilst we're on the subject, mate? And they've put the wax in your ears, and like I think it's Turkish barbers that do it just whilst we're on the subject, and then like what do you call that? They wax your ears.
I've never had it done, but I've seen it done, and they do your nose as well.
Mate, it's honestly one of the most traumatic experiences I've had. Sitting there thinking my hair's done. Guy all of a sudden starts whacking stuff into my ear. Wished didn't know what was happening, honestly.
Nah, not for me, mate. Not for me. What's been happening in the life of Kyle the last week? What's going on, and how's the wee man?
Uh, Good, mate. He is super busy. It's class in a lot of ways, but you're like, he's not a baby anymore. He's literally crawling, pulling himself up on things. Like, he's got personality in the sense that, like, he smiles differently, which is weird. Like, you'll experience this soon yourself, but, like, just the fact is, like, there's different smiles and different reactions to different things. There's even expressions of him. You can see he's now getting raging about things as well. So if he doesn't get his own way, fucking raging, mate. We now can't eat in front of him because he's raging that he's not getting some of your food. So like we just need to secret eat in places, mate. Um, but yeah, no, outside that, mate, all going well. My own muscle building phase is going well at the moment.
Fantastic.
Things are strong. I touched the 60 kilo dumbbells, which has always been an ambition. I've done them for one or two before, but I got five. And to be fair, they're just so awkward that like I was trying to get myself on my knees and then back into position, but they're so awkward and rigid. I end up like forcing my head off the bench, so it's like half hanging off the bench when I was doing them.
Aye.
So I reckon I could have got more if I was a better position, but sure, that's what it is.
Right, here's a question about dumbbell chest press, right?
Right, go on.
Um, do you think it's a sensible idea to be doing PBs on dumbbell?
Uh,
Like, for me, right, I'll tell you where I'm coming from here, right? Because that was quite a, it wasn't a very good question, right? So, in my opinion, in my humble and personal opinion, any sort of chest press PB, I believe, should be done on a machine, a bench, or a Smith machine, right? Only if it's incline on a Smith machine. Reason being, trying to get the dumbbells in place is probably the hardest fucking thing. You're exerting unnecessary energy trying to get them in place. Plus, when you start your chest press with a dumbbell, you should start with your hands up. So
yeah.
you're already wasting half a rep's worth of energy. Does that make sense? For me, dumbbells should be anywhere like from 6 reps and above. If you're going below 6 reps, you could argue that it should be bench press. But again, this is just personal opinion, personal preference. What's your take on it?
I was actually just about. I took a wee minute to think about the question, just because I was like, it is a very nuanced question. But you're right.
Hmm.
If you've the hardest part is getting the dumbbells up in the first place. You're starting from a position where you're at your weakest, at your lowest point. So it's almost like starting a squat at the bottom of a
Yeah.
squat rather than the top, which is why it's extremely hard to say it's an accurate. Like, I wouldn't do a 1 rep max on it. I'd be honest, like, my threshold's 5. I'm like, I do occasionally get people in gyms of 5, and the only reason I do it is because, like, a lot of people that I coach don't have anybody spotting them to do like a bench press or anything, like as in like a barbell bench press. So the only way that they can push intensity sometimes the way we want them to is a dumbbell bench press. Whilst there is a translation to a barbell, it's not going to be like massively, but at the same time, I would probably like go and establish what a 5 rep max is with a dumbbell bench press rather than like trying to. Like, you would be more accurate with a barbell bench press. However, you will see occasionally like rugby players and people of bigger stature who use dumbbells. You will see them doing heavier weights in like the ones, twos, and threes, but they tend to have like fucking 2 people either side of them helping them up with the dumbbell,
Yeah.
80 kilos a hand, and they've got somebody helping them on the downward phase. So it's, yeah, I'd say you're right, mate.
So just basically for general population, if you're going for a max lift, maybe stick to the bench, but always, always, always make sure you've either got a spotter or you're in a rack that you can put the safeties on.
And a controversial opinion, now you've brought it up, I think most of the general population should be testing PBs anyway.
Yes. Yeah, I agreed. I completely agree. But you know what the general I'm kidding on. I'm not telling everybody with the same brush, but
Fucking do it, mate. Say
you
what you
know,
say,
you
don't
know what some,
apologise.
you know what some ego lifters are like. More particularly, late teens, early 20 males who like to lift with the ego and show off in the gym. And how much do you even bench, bro, or do you even lift, bro? Um, when I was in Pure Gym, I seen a young boy in there. He's now a PT and he's lifting good numbers. But at the time that I was working on Pure Gym, he was trying to lift PBs every week. I'm going to try and go for it. I'm like, mate, you're going to fucking break yourself. Do you know what I mean? So, um, if you're listening to this and you want to go for a PB, we don't recommend it. However, you're probably not going to listen to us when it comes to PB because the ego does get in the way. Just make sure you're safe doing it. Probably don't recommend a 1 or a 3 rep max dumbbell bench press. Use a Smith machine if you're doing incline. Even using a fucking plate loaded machine to see how much you can lift on that. You can still progressively overload if you're lifting on a machine. If you're bench pressing, set up the safeties or have 1 or 2 spotters.
Yeah, agreed. And I would always question why somebody's trying to look at a PB in the first place. What effect is it? Usually it's because it's addictive and you can see progress.
Mhm.
Whilst a 1 rep or 3 rep max is a good expression of strength, it's not really great for strength building because whilst you can argue there's central nervous system adaptations, you don't really have muscles time under tension enough. And it's quite hard to actually, like, you don't really tend to see people doing 1 rep maxes where it looks pretty, being honest. Like, usually a lot of the things that unlock, it's like, it gives you good data. But with all that said, the best thing that you could do is look at the feeling of progression and seeing if you can do that into a 6, 8, 10, 12 reps. Like, if my story today on my Instagram, I'm like, I've done a new, was it 12 rep max for dumbbell bench pressing. So I'm like, whilst that's definitely not as sexy as going, I lifted 60 kilos, it's very much going, what's the most I've ever lifted at 50 kilos
Yeah.
and doing it for a decent amount of time. So I would look at being progressive with all your training, no matter what the rep range.
100%, 100%. If you can't increase the reps, sorry, if you can't increase the weight, increase the reps. Because overall, that's still going to get an increase in volume, which is then going to lead into more strength, more muscle, more looking sexier, more lifting heavier weights later down the line. Yeah, sorry, that just kind of popped into my head there because you did mention that you were lifting big ass dumbbells. Mate, you're basically, I know the weight's different from a barbell to a dumbbell, but you're basically chest pressing on each hand what I fucking put over my head. That's mental.
Yeah, mate, it is when you think about it. It's literally just it's a decent amount of weight, but I think bear in mind, I have been bench pressing every week for about 12 years. Like, it's not like I've done this in a 3 month period. Speaking of which, there's a wee guy just sprinted into the room at the moment. I'm going to just let him crawl, but if you start to hear some background noise, hello, cheeky chap. Do you want to come say hi to the podcast?
Get him on. He can be
Come
today's guest,
on, the guest.
featuring young Finn.
What,
Yeah, is there a wee man there?
what are you saying? What's your protein intake, wee buddy? What you
I'll
bench
tell
pressing?
all the Spotify listeners have just whacked their phone on to see who's on the camera.
Yeah, so I think it's my baby, but it's a wee baby nonetheless. Saying hi to everybody. Right, get to. See you later.
Fantastic, man.
What was I going to say? Question.
Yes.
I've seen a lot on Instagram this week in particular. Well, actually, sorry, it's been the last couple of months, but like this week in particular, a lot of reels in particular saying that fitness is overwhelming. I think it's a lot of the conflicting information in the sense that there's perhaps one person on Instagram saying like your excuses don't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody's died. It doesn't matter if you've got a new child. It doesn't matter if whatever. Whereas the next post down, you can literally see somebody going, "Well, you're all going to die, so just enjoy yourself." And then it's a case of, do you cut out caffeine? Do you need to go to the gym 5 days a week? Should you hit a protein count? Should you actually be in a calorie deficit? Like, should you cut out alcohol? Are you stretching? Like, I'm going to ask just probably the generalized question directed to you. Do you think health and fitness is overwhelming for most people?
Absolutely 100% yes. There is no, in my eyes, or my opinion, there is no question about it. Especially if you're completely new to health and fitness, you've maybe just started following one or two um, PTs that you've maybe liked the look of online, and then before you know it, your algorithm is going fucking insane with all this, like you mentioned, conflicting advice, conflicting evidence. You've got extremists on one side of the table, you've got extremists on the other side of the table, you've got people that are right in the middle who are, sitting on the fence. So, aye, 100%, mate. Long story long, yes. Or long answer long, I should say yes.
Long answer. Yeah, mate, I agree. I think actually it does a lot for people to turn them off because they're like, how are we ever meant to do this when you need to do so many things and it's getting thrown down your throat as having to do so much?
Yeah.
I'm going to probably ask a few of the questions then if we start to, whilst we're never going to solve the fitness industry's problems on today's podcast, maybe dive into a wee bit of some of the things that people talk about and say what we, in our opinion, would be good to focus on that makes it a little bit less overwhelming. So let's just start with going to the gym. How frequently do you reckon you should go to the gym?
Minimum 2 times. Don't put any pressure on yourself to go 5, 6 times a week. That is absolutely ridiculous. You don't need to do that unless you are competing in some sort of competition. Could be a strongman competition. Even then, like strongmen only in the gym every single day of the week. I would say the only people that really need to be in the gym 5, 6 times a week are competing bodybuilders, because they train specific body parts per day, so they actually can go in the gym, and they're not overwhelming themselves, they're not fatiguing themselves to the point where it's detrimental to their efforts. But anywhere between 2 and 4 times a week is the sweet spot. You don't even need to be in the gym. You could do at home resistance work. See if you've got some dumbbells. You still can drastically change your body if you put the work in for 2 strength training or resistance training sessions per week.
Yeah, 100%. And like strength training, as you kind of touched on a wee bit there, doesn't need to be done in the gym.
Mhm.
The resistance at home, if lockdown and COVID has showed us anything, you can still get in great shape and still make great improvements to your health and fitness just by using either body weight or minimal equipment.
Mhm. At 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything you said, mate. 2 to 4 times a week. I'd say even like if you can get to the gym once a week, whilst you're not going to see massive improvements, it does show a lot in terms of like progression and losing muscle. So whilst you might not build a massive amount of muscle going once a week, like you do a lot to stop the degeneration. And when you're over the age of 30, it's probably a good thing that we look at
Aye.
stopping that
But
process.
the thing is, though, like if you've never been in a gym before in your life, if you've never touched a weight in your life, you're still going to get a positive response from training once per week. See if you do one full body session per week, squeeze it into a 45 minute to an hour at an absolute maximum. Everybody can afford an hour per week. You will still see some sort of benefit, whether that be, like you said, muscle preservation, or you might actually see, in fact, you probably will see strength gains for the first wee while because you're going to experience the whole newbie gains. You might actually pack on a decent wee bit of muscle by only going once per week to get you started. A lot of people think who are very new to health and fitness when they follow these influencers online or fitfluencers, whatever you like to call the fucking dickheads, because they train five, six times a week. People, general population, feel like that's what they need to do to then look like this person. One, you're never going to look like that person because that is their professional. It's their profession to look that way. Two, you're still going to get a good positive response by only going once per week at the very beginning. And then once you're a wee bit more confident in the gym, then we can look at increasing that to twice per week. And then before you know it, you're going to be wanting a 3 day a week program, upper lower full body, bang, body completely transformed, mindset transformed. It's a winning combination.
I'm going to make the argument because, again, a lot of the stuff is thrown down your throat by social media. But I'm going to make the argument that people, influencers, just because you said it, who are going to the gym every single day are the people who are controlled most by the gym. Because
Mhm.
I would argue if you took the context out of the gym and moved it to something else, if you have to go to work 7 days a week, 365 days a year to pay your bills and feel comfortable, then you're probably doing something wrong. You
Mhm.
probably aren't being overly effective at what we're looking at. So I would argue that like you can absolutely like I train like everybody from the office workers to athletes, and there's nobody that I would say it's worthwhile training more than 4 days a week if you're doing things properly. The people who tend to train more than 4 days a week aren't doing things correctly, with the exception of, as you said, people are on performance enhancing drugs because they can. The only thing it does is it just helps speed up recovery rates, which means they can do things quicker. And then potentially you could make an argument for Olympic lifting simply because it's so skill based, but it's also like if you're doing reps of 1 to 3 and it's not maximal loads, then recovery rates are going to be higher. So that's the only exceptions. But I doubt the people listening to this are going to be specialists in Olympic lifting.
You never know, mate.
I'll probably get a message during the week saying that they were enough to fuck off. I'm like, no worries, mate. What was I going to say? Right, let's move on to protein. Can be a big one. I think it can be quite a scary one for people because there's usually two conflicting pieces of information. Not necessarily conflicting, but two hard pieces of information. One, for a lot of people, to get in shape, they need to be in calorie deficit, which means less calories. The second is getting 2 times their body weight in protein. And it's like,
Mhm.
how do you merge both of them together? Is that important? How important is it? What's your opinions on it?
Right, so it's my understanding, right, that this like the research shows that the sweet spot for protein is if you take your body weight in kilograms, multiply it by 1.6, multiply it by 2.2, and then you've got your protein range. Now, this is actually 1.6 times your lean mass. So if you're weighing 100 kilo and you have quite a lot of body fat, then 1.6 times 100 is 160. So technically, you don't actually need 160 grams of protein per day. It would be a lot less than that. However, if you use that as a good kind of guide to aim for, then you're definitely getting more protein in than you need, but you're always better getting more protein in than you need than not enough protein. Protein isn't something that's going to make you big and bulky. It's not something that you eat a wee bit more of when you want to get in shape. Protein is a fucking necessity. You have to get your protein in and you have to make sure you're getting enough in, regardless of whether you're trying to build muscle, regardless of whether you're trying to lose a wee bit of body fat, regardless of whether you're trying to do neither and you're just trying to feel a wee bit better. Protein 100% is an absolute necessity and it's important. It's imperative, there's a word, that you get enough. A good starting point, if you want to do the kilograms, is multiply your body weight by 1.5. Don't go the 1.6 route. Multiply by 1.5. It's much easier to work out. If you're going to the pounds route, 0.8 to £1 is a bare minimum. And then you can push it up to either 2 grams per kilo or whatever, 1.5 grams per pound.
Okay, 100%. I'm with you on that, but then I'm going to take the opposite approach. Somebody could be
Mhm.
listening to this and go, "Well, at the moment, I'm getting about 50 grams of protein, and I really
Yep.
struggle to get it in. I'm feeling it's like I'm so overwhelmed with it. What happens with them? like, is it worthwhile at all if they're so far off it, or what's the thought process behind it?
So let's say it's a female, for example, right, and they're getting 50 grams of protein in per day, struggling to get it in, and they weigh something like, I'll use these numbers, 80 kilo, right? What's 80 times 1.5? It's about 120.
Yep.
Right, there's no chance they're going from 50 to 120 just like that. So it has to be slowly increased. If you're going from 50 grams of protein a day to 120 grams of protein per day, you're going to fucking feel it. Like your digestion might take a hit. You might feel like you're forcing and cramming food down your throat just to hit the protein target. So what I would say, and this is just my recommendation that I do with my clients, start by adding a wee bit more protein every single week. So aim for 100 grams, right? That's you doubling your protein, but I don't want you to hit that 100 grams every single day. I do want you to, but it's probably more than likely that you're not going to. So anywhere between 80 to 100 grams to start with. Once that becomes comfortable, then we can bump it up. Aim for the 100 grams, get rid of the 80, and then we take it up gradually. Um, Getting more protein into your diet is difficult when you don't really know what to do. However, when you understand how many grams of protein are in certain foods, all you need to probably do is eat more of the protein sources from the meals that you're already eating. See if you're having one chicken dish a day, rather than having 100 grams of protein, have 150 grams. Sorry, not protein, chicken. If you're having 100 grams of chicken breast, have 150. If you're having one breast and no weighing it, have one and a half breasts. And then try and add another wee bit of protein in your lunchtime meal, a chicken salad, something like that. If you need to supplement it, get a wee protein shake in first thing in the morning. If you can start your day off with 30 to 50 grams of protein right off the bat, then that's you. You're already fucking ahead of the game, and it's much easier for you to get your protein in throughout the day rather than leaving it to your dinner. Did all of that make sense there? Because I went on a wee rant.
No, I enjoyed the rant, mate. I think, like anything, like there is a sweet spot of yes, there's overwhelm, but also for things to change, there needs to be an element of change. It doesn't need to be as drastic as what you think it does. Protein first thing in the morning is a game changer. I often find looking through people's fucking food diaries for a living that, like, genuinely the people who do the best are the ones who get the protein in the morning. Usually when people aren't hitting the protein, it's because they're having fucking cornflakes and nothing but cornflakes until about 3 o'clock in the day, then wondering why they're not hitting protein. So there's a lot more to protein than just the fact that, like, it's a building block for muscle. It helps hair, skin, nails, your body. As Gary said, if you have an excess of it, it tends to just pee it out rather than store it as body fat. So you'll find that, like, you will be leaner at a higher amount of protein, which is technically why having a percentage of it in your nutrition is important. The more you exercise and the more you strenuously exercise, the higher your protein demand. Again, being a building block to muscle, it can only build things that are broken down in the first place. So typically you want, if you're only trying to maintain muscle, the level of protein that you need is far less than what you are if you're actively trying to build it. So if you're trying to maintain it, I think the numbers are like 0.8 to
Yeah.
1 gram per kilo of body weight, which is a lot less. So if you are actively trying to move things forward and recover, then yes, it does get a lot higher than that. But, like, I think just actually making sure that, like, you have some go-to sources of protein. And again, don't want to sound like a dick about it, but, like, everything, some things that shouldn't have protein in it these days have protein in it. Like, you've got fucking protein popcorn. I've seen a protein soup party. Protein soup? Where are you coming from with that?
Aye,
It must
I
taste
know,
rotten.
mate, I know. Protein bagels, protein bread, protein pasta. It's fucking mental. Although a lot of them are just trying to catch you out with clever marketing by putting the word protein on it. When you actually look at the nutritional value, it's just the exact same as a normal loaf of bread or a normal packet of bagels or packet of pasta. They've just whacked the word protein on it, and
Fucking my protein, I've got a protein yogurt out, right? It's got less protein than, like, total 0% Greek yogurt. And I'm like, how have you managed to put out a protein yogurt that has less protein than the yogurt that's not marked protein?
oh my
Um,
God,
Class, but I was going to say, what's the worst protein tasting thing that you've had? Do you know?
that's a good question. Um,
I'll
I
go
had
for, or you go.
right,
You want to
you go.
go?
No, you go
I,
first.
I was going to say protein crisps. So Quest brought out protein crisps. Now,
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Aye.
honestly, it's not just the texture, the taste, everything about it was like, oh, this is good. Well, that or my first ever protein shake was a soy protein shake, and that was honestly rancid.
Right, mate. When we were in college, the protein powder back then was, uh, it was so bad, man.
I remember that you came in one day with a bag of protein powder and like I was like a proper bag, like it wasn't branded or anything, just proper bag. You came in with this massive big story as if like obviously we were all new to like protein understanding what it was, but obviously the guy in the supplement shop or whoever gave you it, the fucking drug dealer who gave you it, remember like you coming in with this massive story about what protein is and you're like, oh, it's just a byproduct of the cheese and it needs to be in a bag rather than a tub because in the bag it digests better than everything else. I was like, sorry, mate, I need to go and get myself a bag of from somewhere.
That was probably around about the same period that I thought you could get your protein for pasta and your carbs for chicken.
In fairness, mate, I used to eat a tub of pasta a day, as you know, back in the day. So I have nothing to say on that. You're right. Um,
Aye. Protein and bananas and all that. My head was mush, man. That just goes to show what we were learning or what we were not learning in college.
I'm not going to lie. Like the level of nutrition that we got given was absolutely like bottom tier. Like honestly, yeah.
100%. There was actually something else that I was going to bring up. Oh, it was about the whole kind of, getting started in your health and fitness journey and protein. This kind of leads into the point that I'm going to make here as well. See if you're starting your health and fitness journey and you want to look a wee bit better and you want to feel a wee bit better and you have no clue where to start. A good place to start would be to, first of all, rather than you going straight for a diet, right? See if you don't have a lot of lean mass on your frame and you go straight for a diet, you're going to need to cut your calories quite a substantial amount. You're going to need to keep your protein high. You're going to need to train really, really intensely for you to possibly get anywhere close to the physique that you kind of have pictured in your own head. See, rather than going straight for an intense diet, why don't you get somebody to help you figure out what your maintenance calories is and then focus more on building muscle instead of losing fat? Let's say you are 30% body fat, right? And you don't lose any 30% body fat, just easy numbers, and you do not lose any weight, you do not lose any body fat, but you pack on 5 pounds of lean muscle. Even though you are heavier on the scales, your body fat percentage drops. And then once you've packed on 5% lean mass, it's going to be much easier for you to then diet down, and you won't need to go as low in calories because muscle burns more calories at rest than fat. Yes, it's up for debate how many calories it actually does burn on a daily basis. However, it's still burning more calories at rest than body fat. You won't need to diet as intensely for you to then see the tone or the muscle definition that you maybe hoped you want to see. You cannot be toned if you do not have muscle underneath the layers of body fat. It's as simple as that.
I'd agree. To be fair, I think some people spend the same fucking year in year out trying to lose the same 5 to 10 kilos of body fat and just go up down up down up down.
Yep.
And there's no change outside of the fact that like your body weight just goes up and down between 5 and 10 kilos all the time.
Mhm.
It is a lot easier to say don't worry about your weight and your body fat when you are leaner because ultimately you are going to feel more comfortable in the clothes the bigger that you are, and ultimately the less you know that you're losing body fat to start off with, and maybe feeling muscle is a little bit harder to do, granted. But yeah, that's a very, very valid point. I think to summarize things so far, it's the things that like we would typically set people up with would be the fact that like yeah, there's probably going to be some form of movement. Like ideally we want you to move a little bit more than what you're currently doing, or at least measure your movement at the moment. You want to ideally have some form of calorie target and protein target, but again it doesn't need to be overwhelming. Don't know what's happening with my words today. And then, look, from a training perspective, we would both argue that, like, you probably, like, there's some people you could argue that you don't need to go to the gym. Like, I constantly have conversations with people who are like, what is it you want? And they're like, I want to be leaner, healthier, and more confident. And then you speak to them about all the things that's going on. And I'm like, let's just focus on nutrition and movement for now. And 6, 8, 12, whatever many weeks, if you've managed to look after nutrition and movement, then we can possibly look at adding in the gym. But you don't necessarily need it as a tool. But
Right.
I would probably say that. And then like the questions about like what I've seen is like, do you need to give up alcohol? Do you need to give up takeaways? Do you need to give up Like, or you should give up those. What's your thoughts on that, Gary?
Um, to put it bluntly, no, you don't have to give them up. However, some sacrifices do have to be made. If you're drinking every weekend, if you're getting takeaways every weekend, and you're expecting to see world class results and you're expecting to get lean whilst doing the same bad habits that's got you in this position in the first place, then you're in for a fucking shock. Yes, you can continue having takeaways. I do. I basically have a pizza every single week. Yes, you can continue to drink alcohol. However, there is going to have to be some sort of restriction on both. You cannot eat a takeaway every couple of days. You cannot eat multiple takeaways a week. You can. Technically, you can as long as it fits within your calories. However, you are going to feel like a bag of shite. You might not look the way you hoped to look because you're not getting enough high quality whole foods, micronutrients, you're not getting enough protein in. You're probably going to feel very, very sluggish and fatigued and tired. I know when I have a takeaway the next day, I feel almost hungover. Alcohol as well, pretty much just empty calories. It can affect, if you go out on a Friday, you can still be feeling the effects of alcohol on a Sunday. It can lead to poorer choices in terms of food. Your motivation can take a dip, your willpower can take a massive dip. So, whilst you still can have all of these, moderation is it's the key word here. You can do this in moderation. You can still live a very healthy lifestyle by drinking every week, by having a takeaway every week. But yes, moderation is key when it comes to this. It's important that you still have fun and enjoy what you're doing rather than completely over restricting, going on a super low calorie diet, getting into pretty decent nick, but not feeling happy in your own skin, even though you do have a six pack, a visible six pack. It's not worth it if you can't enjoy a fucking Krispy Kreme donut every so often.
Yep, the Krispy Kremes. Yeah, mate, I agree. Do you ever see Super Size Me?
I did, I.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously the guy, I actually just had to look there because I'm pretty sure he died recently. I doubt
Did he
it.
die recently?
Yeah, yeah, he died. It was cancer, but I was just really looking up the cause of his death there. But I doubt it was anything to do with McDonald's. I'll be honest, I've not read too deep into it. I just remember seeing that he died, I think last year. I just wanted to double check that. But if you've not seen Super Size Me, brief synopsis is it was the guy who pretty much was trying to explore how the average American lives and how unhealthy some of their habits were. And they pretty much went into the basic American steps, which I think were less than 5,000 a day or 4,000 a day. He went to McDonald's for pretty much all of his meals for 30 days and he got his health markers checked at the start of it and the end of it. And I think like what they found was it was like, again, it's a film. It's meant to be polarizing, but I think they found that there was massive changes in his blood lipid markers. His liver was pretty fucked. They pretty much the doctor said if you continued on that path for a period of time, then you were going to die. Ironically, he's fucking dead anyway. But I was going to say, so look, whilst there is an element of just to bring that, the reason I brought that up is you can absolutely have a few drinks. You can absolutely have a takeaway, but like when you do these things for the purpose, like there isn't a lot of micronutrients in it. It isn't the best food to have. Whilst you arguably could lose weight on it, I think Sai Fitness, he actually done the opposite to Super Size Me, where he ate 30 days of McDonald's but done it in a calorie deficit. Put his things up on Instagram every day, and he lost, I think it was like a stone over the period. But the thing is like you're tired a lot, you're hungry a lot, you feel like shit a lot. So whilst it can be done, and the same with alcohol, I'm not going to lie, like, you know, hold this for a wee second. 6 months sober today, guy.
Yes,
Yes.
come on.
But with
Well
that,
done, mate. Yes.
that was nothing to do with me being in shape or not. Arguably, I've got less of a six pack now than I did when I was on the sesh regularly. Well, it's not even arguable, mate. It's fucking quantifiable. There's rules there. But I was going to say, with that, like you can absolutely get in shape whilst drinking alcohol. It just doesn't make you any better at dieting. The biggest issue most people fuck up is they don't think they do too bad at the weekend, but then they'll have 6 pints on a Friday night, and then that will maybe lead to raiding the biscuit jar, and then Saturday you wake up feeling not great, but you have a bit of a looser breakfast. You might meet a mate for it, have a coffee that's probably about 400 calories worth of coffee, and then time you get to lunchtime and you like over the past 24 hours you've probably had about 5,000 calories. You're already thinking, oh, do you know what, like I'll just treat myself and then we'll start again Sunday rolls into Monday, and then that's where the biggest issue lies because your movement's not been overly great over the weekend as well. So it can be done, just needs to be Like, it just needs to be done in a fashion where you can control it. And I would always say if you're taking something consistently that you're not in control of, then you probably should have a wee break from it at points just to see how you get on. But it's not a. I'm definitely not jumping on the high horse of I'm no drinking, so you shouldn't be drinking.
Oh, aye, 100%. A big focus as well should be on your habits out with the gym too. Like a lot of people, we're all looking for that quick fix because we don't feel like we've got time to dedicate to our own health and fitness. We just want to jump on the Ozempic jags and take these fat burners and these fucking fat burning juice teeth fucking carry on stuff that just makes you basically shit out your guts.
Can I
Uh,
ask? Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a very quick question on that?
yes.
What's your thoughts on Ozempic?
Right, this is a very good question. Now, it's a very nuanced topic in my opinion, right? Because it can be life-saving for people who are struggling, morbidly obese, close to death. It can be fantastic for them. However, it can also be very, very dangerous for people that maybe don't have a lot of body fat to lose and are trying to get down to a specific size and dress because that's what their favorite fitfluencer wears. Um, so there is good and there is bad for it, I believe. A lot of people see it as a quick fix. They take Ozempic for a few months, they lose a lot of weight, bang, they're in a good position. It's not like that at all. If you're taking Ozempic, you still need to focus on your habits. What Ozempic will allow you to do, and I'm by no means saying that this is what you should do, but what Ozempic will allow you to do is because it calms down the food noise in your head, it will then allow you to focus on your habits. You still need to build up the habits that are going to give you that long-term success that you're truly after. You're not in it for a 3 month quick fix. You didn't get fat in 3 months. You're not going to fucking lose it in 3 months. It is going to be a very long process. Ozempic can help you build up those habits by calming the food noise down and allowing you to actually focus on how much rest you get, when you sleep, what your training's like, what your water intake's like. Um, so don't see it as a quick fix. And if you're not working on the habits out with taking the Ozempic, then you're wasting your fucking time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your energy, and you'd be as well just fucking paying. You'd be as well just going out into the street and shredding your money. If you don't have a lot of body fat to lose, I think it's bad news. People are using it to lose even more body fat when they're already in very, very good shape and good nick, and it's because of all the shit that social media is promoting. The whole kind of you have to look like this to be accepted, and you have to look a certain way to have people approve of your body shape or your body image. Does that make sense?
100%. Actually, it was a very brief documentary I watched on YouTube the other evening where it was a guy talking about like bulking, and he was actually talking about he's like we're in an era where like people don't bulk anymore or put on muscle because you'll typically find that most people we're in the age where you're on camera all the time and nobody
Yeah.
wants to look slightly out of shape. So like you'll find that your face will get a bit puffier, you'll be out of shape in terms of having your belly, whatever. Like so a lot of people don't want to do that. So the driving force behind a lot of these drugs are the fact that like it will give you a boost and you'll look better, and it's like it is the silver bullet. I would say everything has a cost to a point. Now again, Ozempic's still fairly new. It's probably going to be things that there's nothing that comes without a cost. But now,
Yes.
with that said, my own thought processes are that like I've been diving a lot into belief systems lately, as we kind of touched on in our last podcast. But some people, the limiting factor to them getting results isn't the fact that they can't do the steps or can't do the nutrition or can't do the training. It's actually they just don't believe that they can change. And the
Yeah.
problem with not believing you can change is the fact that you're then always going to find the smallest little hurdle will slip things up because you're like, I don't deserve it. I'm not going to whatever. It's a deep rooted thought process that goes on throughout most of their belief system. Now, what is Empic, in my opinion, could do is the fact that it shows you progress. And when you see progress, you tend to find that people actually double down on efforts a lot of times. So if someone who hasn't ever lost body fat starts to see themselves losing body fat, if anything, the best case scenario is the fact that they go, do you know what, I'm actually doubling down now on healthy eating habits and exercise because I can see actually it is possible for me. Louis Simmons, RIP, he used to actually talk about that on people with steroids. It's like people with steroids often get a hard time for not training as hard as people without steroids. It's like I would say the opposite. I would say that people on steroids train harder, and
I
he
agree.
actually got down to they train harder because they get a bigger result. Like
Yeah.
they literally see a direct input to their training. Like if you're training and you're seeing a 10 kilo increase in your weights every single week, most people will train harder. It's like if you turned around, there's going to be two camps of people, obviously. But if we turn around to anybody listening, and go, we are going to, you're going to get paid by the hour, but we're doubling your wage per hour. There's a good chance you're probably going to want to work either more hours or double down on the work that you're doing because you're getting a bigger return for what you're doing. It's very clear. The reason that a lot of people can sometimes be looked at as lazy, it's not actually a laziness thing. It's just don't see a return on the efforts they're putting in the first
Yes.
place.
I completely agree, 100%. Everything that you said makes complete sense, and I think just to mention a steroids there now as well. Like I think we're like right now we're living in an age where young boys seem to be taking a fuck ton of steroids before they've actually fully matured and allowed their brain to completely grow and whatnot. And then you've got kind of I'm no what's the word I'm looking for when you class everybody as the same.
Tarnishing everybody with the same brush.
Kinda. I'm no meaning to do that.
Generalising. Generalising.
Stereotype. I'm no meaning to stereotype, right? So it tends to be young males taking steroids, and it tends to be kind of middle-aged. I wouldn't even say middle-aged, but late 20s, early 30s, going more towards kind of middle-aged women who are looking at taking Ozempic. So you don't really hear a lot of guys. I know there is guys out there. You don't hear a lot of guys going, I think I'm going to dive on the fat loss injection, and you don't hear a lot of girls saying, "I'm thinking about taking some SARMs or whatever and some test." Um, and I think that is just because of how social media has one promoted it and two normalized it, and it's quite a scary time for the health and fitness industry, and it's up to people like myself and you to try and keep a lid on it and try and speak the truth whilst also showing people that there is no such thing as a quick fix. If there is a such thing as a quick fix, then we've yet to find it. Everything that comes with a quick fix has some sort of detrimental effect on your health and well-being in the long run.
Yeah, a controversial opinion. I'm not endorsing Psalms in the slightest, but I would say that if there's anybody who should take Psalms in terms of a gender, nobody, in my opinion, should take Psalms. But if
Hmm.
there was a gender, it's probably more suited towards females than males because it doesn't have androgenic effects. It doesn't affect your voice box. It doesn't affect your
Hmm.
jawline. It doesn't affect your like give you your testicles or whatever. Women don't have testicles. Well, some of them back in the day when I was with them, but that's a different story for a different time. But yeah, no. Anyway, I'm going to put that aside before I start going down a rabbit hole of things that we shouldn't really be going down. Moving on. I did have something else to actually add there, and it's completely gone out of my mind because I've now got testicles stuck in my brain.
You're all right. Listen, what we do if you want to kind of wrap it up soon enough, I will finish on one last thing, and it was going back to what you were talking about with the Super Size Me guy. Obviously, he ran that experiment for a month where he would eat McDonald's morning, noon, and night for 30 days.
Yeah.
There was a British journalist that done it, and I'm not sure if he's also a doctor. He done something similar. No, it wasn't eating McDonald's every day. Basically, what he did was, you know how we always talk about the 80-20 balance ratio?
Yep.
He flipped it. So he went 20% healthy, 80% whatever he wants. He didn't have a specific calorie target. He didn't have specific meal times. All he done was eat what he wanted when he felt hungry. Um, and they done the whole blood work before and after and stuff like that, and the differences are fucking pretty scary. All right. But what he was saying was when he was eating the food, he was having stuff like chicken kickers for breakfast and stuff, just because I quite fancy chicken kickers this morning for breakfast. He was satiated in terms of feeling full, but um because of the flavor, because of the taste in these foods, he's like, I cannot stop myself from eating. He's like, I know I don't need this, I know I don't want this, but I fucking can't stop because it was so addictively tasty. Um, and then after he'd eaten his chicken kickers for breakfast, he was hungry again an hour later because the food wasn't, it wasn't high in fiber, it wasn't high in protein, it wasn't keeping him feeling full for extended periods of time. So yeah, he found himself overeating a hell of a lot because he didn't have any sort of structure in his day, didn't have anything to follow. If you can watch it, it's on YouTube. It's only like a 15-minute documentary, but it's really, really fucking interesting. I can't remember what it's called. What I'll maybe do is I'll find a link and I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, good.
Um, for anybody wanting to watch it. If you want it sent through to you as well, Kyle, I highly recommend it. Like I say, it's only a short documentary, but it's just interesting because when watching it, I could fully relate on a personal and a much deeper level than just looking at food and going, "Oh, I want that." Like, I've had a terrible relationship with food my whole life. People listening know I've had a terrible relationship with food my whole life. So I can understand what he means when he was eating something and he would feel full, but he would still continue to eat. There's two elements what I believe as to why I would keep eating in that situation. One, I don't like wasting food, and I think it's because of the upbringing I had. And two, I just need to try and get as much in, and then I'll start again from the next meal. I'll start eating healthy again from the next meal. So I'm just trying to cram it all in before I then start eating healthy again. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%, mate. I think there's a lot of value in what you said there, mate. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Speaking of which, actually, in our upcoming podcasts, we're actually going to be doing Gary's story, so that'll be something to.
Next week.
We do have a few. Yeah, so mind I'm in Tenerife next week, so we're not going to be doing a podcast next week at all. It'll be a wee week off for our listeners. I know it's devastating.
Oh my God.
We might fall down the charts from the top 2% of podcasts to the top 3%, but I was going to say it also gives me a wee bit of time to get some questions prepped so I can really go invasive with you, mate.
Let's do it.
Thinking about Cartman with the anal probe there, but yeah, we've also got a few guests potentially that are getting lined up. I'll not name them at the moment, but it's quite exciting things coming up. So stay tuned for that. But on that note, we'll wrap it up there. Gary, where can they find you?
Instagram at gmac_health and fitness. Kyle, where can they find you?
Kyle, I was going to give him my email address. I knew there was a point where I was going to fuck that up. Kyle_biofitness1 on Instagram.
Excellent. As always, thank you, Dave and Toby, for the music. Yeah, see you all in a couple of weeks.
See you in a couple of weeks, trips.
Bye.
Bye.